guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. With a turbulent stock market and inflation increasing prices in practically every area of our lives, more and more Americans are feeling that crunch or that pressure. Prices are increasing at a faster rate than we've seen in over 4 decades, so perhaps this really isn't all that shocking. But the number of Americans who are now reporting that they're living paycheck to paycheck does seem surprising. At this time, reportedly 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That's 12% higher than just a year ago, and this money strain is even being felt by six-figure earners. 48% of consumers making more than $100,000 per year report living paycheck to paycheck. When we look at those earning between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, 67% report living paycheck to paycheck. And as of 2022, median household income in America just hit right above $70,000 a year. So this bracket is representing the vast majority of our nation. There are two broad categories to consider when it comes to living paycheck to paycheck: those struggling and not able to fully pay their bills every single month, and those who are able to pay their bills but have little to nothing left after doing so. 42% of those who are living paycheck to paycheck are still able to pay their bills every single month. 22% say they're unable to pay their bills every month. 12% of those making more than $100,000 a year say they are unable to pay their bills in full every single month. Obviously, one of the first things people cut when they find themselves living paycheck to paycheck is their contributions to savings or investments, which makes sense because if you're struggling to put gas in your car or food on the table, obviously beefing up your investments doesn't top the charts. But it is incredibly concerning that so many people are saying that they're not able to pay their bills in full every single month, because that means they're going to be racking up debt, which is a really bad cycle to start because it can be a really hard cycle to break. If you find yourself in this situation, you have to find ways to cut back because driving yourself further into debt should not be an option. So cutting back and also finding ways to make more money. So maybe that means getting a side hustle or finding a better paying job. Now, I know that I've been feeling the price increases. I notice them most at the gas station, like most people. So I'm driving less, but I work from home, so I don't really drive all that much to begin with. And the other place is the grocery store. Food prices have increased a lot lately, and I am a frugal girl. Doesn't matter, as I've gotten older with pay increases, that frugality is in my bones and I cannot shake it. So as I've noticed these price increases, I've changed up my diet. I've swapped out meat and instead incorporated beans. Beans are about 70 cents a can, so I can eat a lot of them, and they're also incredibly healthy. So that means what I'm doing is good for my health, but also good for my wallet. When my husband overheard me talking on the phone with my mom about my grocery bill and ways I was trying to reduce it by switching to rice and beans, he sent me this text. But hey, I'm doing my part to reduce my family's expenses. It can be natural to assume that just because someone is a six-figure earner, that automatically makes them a high-income earner. But where they live plays a huge determining factor. Because in high cost of living cities like San Francisco, for a family of 4, $120,000 a year is considered low income. Whereas in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a family of 4 meets that same threshold at about $50,000 a year. So while a six-figure income may put you in the upper income bracket for many parts of the country, that's not necessarily the case for larger, more in-demand metro areas. And then we also have the simple fact of lifestyle creep. As our income tends to increase, we tend to inflate our lifestyle to keep up with our income. Maybe when you started out with your first job, you had a couple roommates and you were driving an old clunker. Well, when you got your first pay bump, maybe you graduated to your own single apartment. After a few more pay bumps, maybe you bought yourself a house, upgraded your wardrobe, and you're now driving a new car. Maybe you more frequently eat at nicer restaurants and plan nicer vacations. And it doesn't seem like that big of a deal because you're making more money and you can afford it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with increasing your lifestyle when you get pay increases. You're working hard to make this money. Make sure you enjoy it as well. But you also need to be increasing your savings and your investments. Because as your monthly obligations, your bills increase, you need a heftier emergency fund. And it goes without saying that you should be putting more in your investments 10 years into your career when your income is double what it was at the start of your career. As we inflate our lifestyles, the things we once looked at as luxuries, like having our own place, having weekend getaways, or going to nice restaurants, kind of become the norm. They no longer are seen as luxuries, but rather they can be seen as needs. And I know I'm guilty of this. I don't want to go back to living in a 600 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with my husband. I like having extra space, but that extra space is more expensive. It's worth noting that not every inch of lifestyle creep that we've given ourselves over the years is essential. And if you're struggling to make ends meet, it's time to have a discerning eye, look over your budget, and make the necessary cuts. In a 2022 survey of 2,600 people with personal capital, the typical American is now saying that they feel like they need an income of at least $122,000 a year to feel financially secure. Is that to say that you can't be in great financial shape on a lower income? Of course not. Many Americans do it. There are Americans making $50,000 a year who are in great financial shape. They're contributing to their savings, they're paying their bills in full every single month. It really comes down to that old saying, it's not how much you make, but how much you keep. Which is why it's so important to know where you stand financially, regardless of your income. As I mentioned before, one of the first places people cut back when money gets tight is their savings and investment category. And our savings rate in America just hit 4.4%, which is a 14-year low. We haven't seen savings rates below 5% since the last major recession in 2008. Briefly during the pandemic, savings rates surged to record highs near 33%, but on a whole, the US average savings rate has tended to be around 7 or 8%, so clearly this is lower than normal. Have you ever heard of how much money you need to be happy? Well, according to an often cited Princeton study, that number is about $75,000 a year. After that income threshold, it's not that happiness doesn't increase. It actually does increase. It just does so at a very marginal rate. But there is one issue with this stat, and that's the simple fact that this study was done back in 2010. And unfortunately, we don't really have a new study to reference. So at the very least, we should factor in inflation to make the number more reflective of today's current economic situation. Turns out that $75,000 from 2010 would look a lot closer to $100,000 today in 2022. And of course, there are many factors at play when it comes to overall life satisfaction, like health and quality relationships, job satisfaction, and engaging in meaningful activities, just to name a few. And arguably, any one of these or many of them could be more important than money. But with that said, money is still very much a necessity, and the lack of money does bring about profound stress and unhappiness. Anyone who has ever said that money can't buy happiness has never struggled to pay their mortgage or to put food on their table. Living in a constant state of financial stress is no recipe for happiness. Money is necessary insofar that it allows you to live your life, to afford your essentials and your non-essentials that bring you joy. It's no cure-all, it's just one piece of the overall happiness puzzle. And money doesn't guarantee a specific level of happiness, but it does remove a specific level of unhappiness. Perhaps finding ways to boost your income can not only reduce your levels of financial stress, but boost your overall levels of life happiness. And it's probably worth mentioning that everyone has their own unique relationship with money. So how money impacts your level of personal happiness is going to be highly individualized to you. And moreover, how it impacts your personal levels of happiness is really going to depend on what money means to you. And while I am a fervent believer in budgeting and spending very carefully, there are scientifically proven ways that you can spend that boost your overall happiness. So maybe while you're watching your dollars when money's a little tight, maybe you can more carefully allocate dollars to those areas that bring you the greatest joy. Spend on experiences. Okay, at this point, I feel like we've all heard that spending on experiences is more joyful than actually spending on physical items. But it's true. When we spend on experiences, we get to live through it. It's more impactful. When we live experiences, we get to create memories. These memories create stories that we get to relive over and over and over again. On the other hand, physical items don't become a part of us. They always are their own individual thing. And also, buyer's remorse is more real when it comes to physical items because it's very easy to compare possessions, but it's very hard to compare experiences. Experiences are unique to the individual. And at the end of the day, I just feel like a lot of possessions become clutter, stored away in the basement or an overflowing closet. Buy your freedom. It's important to remember that money is just a tool, nothing more, and that you should be using your money to afford yourself the life that you actually want to live. One of the best things you can do is spend your money in a way that frees up your time, allows you to spend your time in a way that you enjoy or doing things you love. Time is a finite resource. We only get so much. I have a friend who has a housekeeper clean his house every single weekend so he can go golfing instead. I have another friend who utilizes a mobile laundry service so she doesn't have to do it. These purchases allow them to avoid doing tasks they don't like so they can spend their time doing something they do enjoy. This is also the reason I have a moment of pause anytime I recommend a side hustle or getting an extra job. There are times and places for side hustles, absolutely, and they can be a great thing. But it does involve more of a time commitment to another job, and it takes away more of your free time. If you are struggling to make ends meet, I highly recommend getting a side hustle or a second job or finding a better paying job. But it is important to find a way to strike a balance between free time and work. That's something I don't do at all. I have no balance in life. I should probably work on that. Spend on others. It can feel really good to buy someone else a gift. Spending on others often brings more joy than spending on yourself. Watching your spouse's face, your friend's face, your kid's face light up when they see that you thought about them with this little gift, that can be pretty special. Their joy makes you joyful. And gifts certainly don't have to be lavish. They can be very small things. My mom, for example, loves photos. So every now and again, I make sure to send her some photos, or I'll even send her a postcard that has a custom photo of us on it. My husband loves barbecuing, so often he gets a new spice mixture. At the end of the day, you probably have a good idea of how you can spend to bring yourself joy. And if you don't, maybe it's time to start paying attention to where your dollars are going and how you're feeling when that's happening so you can better clue in on what brings you joy. And it probably goes without saying, and it's probably common sense, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Stop spending in the areas that don't bring you joy. When your dollars are tighter, make sure you're spending them in areas that matter most to you. If your budget feels tighter, it's probably time to reevaluate it. And with 2/3 of Americans reporting living paycheck to paycheck, it's probably time to make sure that your dollars are being spent on things that are meaningful to you, but also that you're making room to save and invest and grow your wealth. Well, that's gonna do it for me today, guys. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Or if you know of anyone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I hope you have a good one. I'll see you soon. Bye.